Hey there guys, welcome to my compound life. I am Jonathan. This is a channel where we build assets, we build habits, and of course we build freedom. That would be financial freedom, time freedom for you, me, and anyone else that watches my video. Good to see you all. Happy Wednesday, happy hump day, by the way. It's brilliant. It's the 4th of March 2026. At the time of recording, it's around 9 a.m. in the morning in the UK, in the West Midlands area. So good to see you all. Before we get started, quick disclaimer. This is not financial or investment advice. I'm not a licensed advisor. Everything here is for education and entertainment only. I make Bitcoin video on a daily basis, guys, so don't miss out. Hit the like, hit subscribe if you like Bitcoin. And of course, remember, guys, to turn on all notification. Okay, so drop a comment below. Let me know where you guys watching from. You know, it's always good to hear feedback from all viewers. That's including you. Okay, so do so. So let's get started. Today. Let's get started with the Bitcoin price for the day. Okay, so right now Bitcoin is trading around $68,000. Well, $70,000. So in the past 24 hours, it moved up tremendously, right? It does seem, I think by the time we finish recording, we should hit about 71,000, right? So in the past 24 hours, it definitely moved up a lot. I think close to about 1 to 1.5%. But anyway, we hit a high so far of 70,800. But of course, the low we gotten was around 66,000. So we are still well below previous highs from earlier cycle or peak, showing that a consolidation phase after some volatility, right? So we are, however, still around 48% away from the recent all-time high of 126,000 back in 8th of October last year. Okay, so I just kind of felt maybe we should really be looking at charts more today, because I kind of feel that we are not too far away from a breakout, guys, right? The breakout will happen anytime. Okay, so I mean, I just felt breakout will happen soon. Okay, so not anytime, but soon. Okay, so let's stay focused. So I kind of felt maybe we'll just spend some time looking at charts for today, basically. So let's start with 4 hours. It's all worth the while to look at 4 hours. Wow, this is beautiful chart. A short 4 hours is kind of like high. So, but anyway, let's see what it really tells us, right? So Bitcoin has been trading inside a descending triangle, right? So this triangle for some time. And every rally kept rejecting, it kept getting rejected lower and lower. But now we're seeing something interesting, right? So before you jump into the conclusion and thinking that this is the breakout, and we're going upwards, just watch till the end, okay? Because Bitcoin, so price right now is compressing into the triangle, okay, with higher lows forming underneath while resistance is coming down from above. And this kind of structure usually means volatility is compressing, and volatility compresses, a big move is usually coming next. And I'm hoping that at the time of recording right now, this is that major move. And right now, Bitcoin is trying to break above that descending resistance around 70,000-ish, which obviously at the time of recording right now, we have broken that to about 71,000. And guys, we just hope that in the 4 hours chart we can maintain and stay on this, on this above this 70k, right? Because that will gives us a good confirmation, right? That this 70k has now been set to support as opposed to resistance, right? So all eyes on these 4 hours, 4 hours bars now, right? So it needs to stay a couple of bars, a couple of bars for us to decide, whether we are, whether we can officially treat this 70k as support. So let's hope the candles continue to close green. So if that breakout happens with strong volume, the next resistance I think we're trying to head to will be around 72,000 or even 75,000, which would be somewhere here. Well, 74,000, which would be somewhere here, and possibly bringing us back to about this area. This would be about 80,500, at least. That would be my aim. So yes, short term, 4 hours chart is showing early sign of strength, but this is where we need to zoom out, right? Before all of you kind of goes FOMO into Bitcoin, like, oh no, the bull run is back, yada yada yada. Let's look at the 1 day chart, because 1 day sometimes it talks about different things, right? So daily chart, it's still a downtrend. If we look at this, when we move to a daily chart, the picture becomes more cautious. What we see here is a large head and shoulder pattern that already broke down earlier. This head and shoulder I spoke about last week, I believe. It's a clear head and shoulder pattern. Okay, the breakdown triggered a sharp move from 90k area down to about 60k range. Now the market is trying to stabilize and consolidate between roughly 64,000 to about 70,000, and it does seem we are, slightly breaking out of that triangle. This yellowish triangle that we've drawn here, and possibly, claiming back that $70,000 support. Okay, resistance turning into a support, right? So market is trying to stabilize and consolidate now, and it's important because 70 is acting like a major resistance before, and now it's breaking out, and especially upwards. So what we ideally want to see is another 2 days of green candle, or green bars, I like to call it, that stay above $70,000, right? Or maybe a strong, a slightly stronger green bar candle that brings us back to this zone. Okay, that would be good. So we'll see. So even if the 4 hour chart temporary is saying that, hey, breakout slightly, we still have to watch whether Bitcoin can actually reclaim this level on the daily time frame. Okay, so if Bitcoin reclaims 70,000 and hold it, guys, that would be awesome. That would be a strong signal that market might attempt a larger recovery move. Okay, but if we get rejected here, then it could simply be a relief rally inside a larger downtrend. And that's what you guys need to be aware of. Okay, so this is why I always say, yes, indeed, this year and until maybe next year, Q2, is definitely like the best time to accumulate Bitcoin. But at the same time, knowing that we all have limited capital to deploy, right? We all want to capture as much of the downside as possible during the bear market, of course. So this is why DCA absolutely works, right? DCA and save some capital to capture some of the more downside. But at the same time, we obviously look at the 1 day chart. let's zoom out more in terms of 1 week. What does 1 week chart actually says to us, right? So if we look at into 1 week, this really is where the macro story comes in, right? So we might have to layer some macro in. The weekly chart clearly shows the full head and shoulder structure of this cycle top. Yep. So left shoulder, head, and right shoulder, and then the neckline somewhere here. That's around 80,000 area, right? Once that neckline broke, we saw a 50% drawdown, which is actually very normal for Bitcoin corrections, right? Bitcoin corrections can go up to about 80-90% drawdown, right? So for now, it's only a 50% drawdown, which potentially means, we can actually get to about 52,000, right? Or 51,500, around that range. Okay, so at any point of time, if we come back to meet our 200 weeks moving average, which is about $58,694 right now. Okay, set the limit, guys, right? So set the limit. So if we hit 59,000, that's definitely a steal, right? If we get to about 58,000, that's also definitely a steal. So set some limit for your buy order, for your DCA, just so that you can capture some of that. But for now, this zone is also very close to, if we do get there, very close to 200 weeks moving average. From a weekly perspective, this is not a confirmed bottom yet, right? Because I would love to call it confirm and say, hey, we have fully bottomed out for Bitcoin. But we are entering what major analysts would call a major accumulation zone, right? So this, guys, is the accumulation zone. And we are just above that accumulation zone. But at the same time, one might argue the fact that because this time round, we never had the blow off top, right? We never had the blow off top here. And the volatility has now been compressed, meaning we don't have a blow off top. So that's why the drops is being compressed too, right? So meaning maybe we won't even be getting into that 200 weeks moving average line. That's around 58,500, right? So that's why I've informed you guys, at least for me, I'm not informing you guys to do anything, non-financial advice, do your own research. So at least for me, I've started my daily DCA. And what I'm looking is to do a bell curve, right? Because there could be a possibility if things do go back up, it moves fast, right? I don't anticipate we'll get back to all-time high anytime soon, or at least this year, but there are analysts that still felt that the 4 years Bitcoin cycle has been broken, right? And this could be the year that Bitcoin can potentially go back higher, right? So I think many of you guys looking at this chart now, right? Looking at this chart. So weekly, we still kind of indicating that, things are slightly bearish. We are still in that bearish mode, bearish phase. This year is the bearish year. But if you kind of look at it from a 4 hours perspective, man, this is talking about something completely different, right? Maybe some of you guys might be feeling euphoric right now. Bitcoin is back to about 71,000 and with the hope that things will eventually go back up. But historically, remind you guys, for the midterm year, the midterm election year in the US, guys, this is the progression for Bitcoin, right? So this is where we are right now. Green, right? If we lay it on the average, to me, maybe this is just the March pump, right? This is a typical March pump that, we see, okay? and then followed by continuous progression downwards. But you never know, right? So watch towards the end. Watch towards the end of the video. I've got some Hopeium, interesting Hopeium that I want to bring you guys. So maybe I have been too bearish after all. Just maybe, right? So yes, interestingly enough, for the, I think everyone is asking the question now, right? Interesting, looking at the 4 hours chart, maybe a lot of thinking would be, hey, you know what? Bitcoin's bottom. This was the bottom. That 60,000 was the bottom, right? RSI confirms it. Everything confirms it. MVRV score, we need to factor in the volatility compression into it. So that's why this has been confirmed as the bottom, right? Because we're simply looking at 4 hours, right? Trying to deceive ourselves that this was the bottom, but you never know, right? So is this a real recovery based on 4 hours chart or a dead cat bounce, right? So right now, the answer, we don't know yet, right? It's definitely going through a compression, right? Compression usually leads it to go pretty wild swing, right? And for now, it's swinging to the upwards movement. So 4 hours chart looks constructive, showing short-term momentum building, which is good, which is what we want to see for Bitcoin, right? But the daily and weekly chart still shows a larger bearish structure that hasn't fully restored, okay? So that means two scenarios are still possible, guys. One, bullish relief rally scenario. Bitcoin obviously broken that 70K. It's trying to get back up to about 74K. If it continues to climb, yes, possible getting about 80K or even 84K, which I need to remind you guys, 84K is a strong magnet because CME gap. That was a CME gap at around 84K, right? So could be a good relief rally after all, a dead cat bounce, just for some of us to take some profits, right? But of course, we also need to factor in this can well be a dead cat bounce that would potentially bring us lower, right? We can go all the way up to about 84K and then down we come, right? So that could be scenario 2, right? And a scenario 3 would probably be Bitcoin rejects near 74,000, which I think it can be, right? And then rolls over again and revisit 60,000 or even this buy zone. 60,000 drop to. That was this support here previously, right? And then drops to about the 200 weeks moving average at 58 and then drops even lower, right? So that can also play out. So bottom line, guys, short-term momentum, it's improving, no doubt. Medium term, it feels resistant is still overhead. And long term, I think Bitcoin entering a historical strong accumulation area. And as always, just DCA, guys. Don't do leverage, right? I've seen a lot of leverage, a lot of reports of 40x, 50x leverage long. You don't want to be leveraging during a bear market, guys. Not good. Okay, so yes, dollar cost averaging will be the best way of survival and building wealth during the bear market. Okay, we're not late. Okay, historically, we still have up to another year to accumulate Bitcoin. Okay, so yes, do not FOMO. Of course, do not panic sell too. So let's move on to some ETF update. ETF right now. Oh, interesting to check on fear and greed. Let's look at fear and greed. Okay, we are still extreme fear. Interesting, because Bitcoin obviously pumped. But anyway, I think throughout the past 7 days, all 7 days of extreme fear, throughout the months, all months of extreme fear, and looking at the year, right? 365 days. I think, guys, as soon as we've gotten enough of this to be fully in the fear and extreme fear zone, that will mark the final, the bottom. Okay, so for the time being, we are kind of in the fear and extreme fear combined, about 58%, and about 48%, not 58, 48% in the fear and extreme fear. So yeah, just keep on building towards fear and extreme fear, and we should be out of it soon. But anyway, let's look at ETF right now, and which, by the way, we need a lot of ETF buying. ETF right now, 3rd of March 2026, it's very, very positive so far. Tuesday, it was all inflow except for Fidelity. So all inflow, approximately $225 million worth of inflow. So that's very positive. What about Ethereum? Ethereum ETF, yesterday, 3rd of March, it was an outflow of $10.8 million. Major outflow from Fidelity, interestingly enough. And of course, someone asked me to do more coverage on Ethereum. I think in the comment section, so I'm gonna try and keep it Bitcoin a little bit, but of course, I think slightly expand our coverage into Ethereum also makes sense too, because Ethereum, it's a good representation of crypto, knowing that Ethereum is like the number 2 coin just immediately after Bitcoin. And I think by the time when we get nearer and nearer to the capitulation for Bitcoin, right, that will also lead on to the capitulations for altcoin too, and altcoin and crypto, and Ethereum being the king of crypto for altcoins, right, would be also good to cover. And yeah, because eventually we're gonna have to see, when Bitcoin rallies, we're gonna have to pay attention to when the rotation can be. But having said that, this cycle is so different to the other 2 cycle, because there has always been a lot of rotation from Bitcoin onto altcoins, right? Other crypto like Ethereum and any other layer 1. However, this time around, it's a very institutional driven Bitcoin buying. So that's why we never quite see too much rotation from Bitcoin onto altcoins. And I kind of felt that maybe this time around, this similar setup will also be played out, right? So at any point of time, if I start to cover Ethereum and some layer 1 altcoins, it doesn't mean I'm endorsing us to get into Ethereum or altcoin, because I just felt as long as Bitcoin continued to be driven by institutions' adoptions by the ETF, none of this liquidity will cascade into altcoins anytime soon, right? I'm just covering it purely to understand what's going on and whether there would be any key rotations that we need to consider, right? Because we are all Bitcoin holders, in my compound life, right? But of course, to caveat, to give you guys transparency, I do hold some other altcoins bags, like the Ethereum bags, the Solana bags, etc., etc. So that's why I do pay attention onto a lot of other altcoins too. But anyway, good for Ethereum. It's not too big of a outflow, but we'll see today and this week for the rest of the week how they're doing. But Ethereum, I think worth the while to cover that. Tom Lee's Bitmine continue to make purchase of Ethereum over the bear market. The firm purchased roughly about 50,900 Ethereum, bringing its total holding to about 4.47 million worth of Ethereum. Okay, so they hold well over 4.47 Ethereum. That's roughly about 3.7% circulating supply, right? So I think these are simply just bear market accumulation. But having said that, I think he could just accumulate much later, when Ethereum can dip a lot more. But anyway, interesting, and I think it shows definitely dollar cost averaging will work. It will eventually work for Bitmine and Tom Lee, as long as they continue to dollar cost averaging and to bring down their average. Okay. And of course, strangely enough, Vitalik Buterin has been selling a lot of Ethereum at the low. I mean, these are like times when you kind of felt, you know what, can't you guys just deal with this, this whole situation where Tom Lee should be buying at the low, right? And Vitalik Buterin should be buying, should be selling when Ethereum is at the high, right? But of course, I think they do it on that special needs. I think Vitalik Buterin simply just want to build up more Ethereum capability, so he needs to spend. He needs to spend to bring in more innovations for Ethereum. But anyway, let's take a quick look in terms of Solana sold ETF. So yesterday was a small 700,000 inflow. Okay, not a lot, but so far things has been pretty positive for Solana, right? And by the way, I also hold a bag of Solana, so not financial advice. Always do your own research. Okay, enough of ETF. Let's move on to news that move Bitcoin price section. Okay, Middle East tension continue to make headline. Missile continues to fire. Oil continues to push up. There's a lot of report, not good of a report. Or even, I think, today, just in more bombs going on. More bombs going on. So I think everyone are really afraid now because I think Bitcoin, not Bitcoin, we cannot assume the Iran war, it's over, just because the US or President Trump took down one of the key leader, right? The supreme leader, because the regime is still there. They will retaliate, right? And they retaliate, and now everyone is really afraid because now that they're retaliating, they're firing missiles onto the neighboring country, and then they're taking out military bases, and then the rest of the world are really concerned about this Strait of Hormuz, because this is where a lot of oil tankers, a lot of shipping have to get past this, this kind of like a, I don't know what you call it. Well, they have to get past this, and now Iran is like looking at this, and can potentially become one of their very key negotiation power, right? But anyway, check this news out. I think it's saying that missile launch from Iran targeted at one of the radar from the U.S. Navy, and they're now afraid that if U.S. cannot even protect their own radar, how can they promise to protect everyone else from the Strait of Hormuz, right?
Has struck Al Udeid Air Base, as I said, the biggest American base in the region. We don't know much more. No casualties reported as of yet. Again, we don't know what we don't know, but we do know they are saying it was a ballistic missile. It's obviously a significant development, and as that is coming in, we are learning that the CIA is also working to trigger some sort of an uprising inside of Iran. Now, this is a major and potentially explosive development in the war. So let me tell you what we know here with these breaking details. Multiple people familiar with the plan are telling CNN that the Trump administration is working to arm Kurdish forces, who they then expect to take part in has struck Al Udeid Air Base.
But anyway, so over the past day, escalating geopolitical issue, it draws investors to sell risk asset, right? U.S. stocks drop, oil spike, obviously, because of this incident. And of course, Bitcoin follows equity lowers, briefly dipping under 70 after touching 70,000. But interestingly enough, Bitcoin rises today. Let me check the price again. 71,300. Let me zoom in a little bit. I love zooming in sometime. Okay, it's still going strong. It's still going pretty strong. Will we see a new all-time high today? We'll see. We will see, right? So, of course, oil shock and inflation fears dragged down Bitcoin earlier, but some see history repeating for a rebound. And yeah, it continues to lead on. Rest of the world selling off, right? Even for Dubai stock market crash, even for the Korean market, the South Korean, not the Korean, the South Korean market, it plunged well over 8%, triggering a circuit breaker and extended losses to 11% after trading resumed, right? So brutal market sell-off. All because of this. All because of, this Strait of Hormuz, okay? So I think the Asian market opened terribly earlier today. I think UK market, it will open, UK and European market are also not performing well. I think the same with the US too. Well, at least I scooped in some Tesla shares yesterday during the dip. I think I'm going to see a lot more dips coming. But anyway, so overall, not good for everyone, okay? However, does it mean it's actually better for Bitcoin? Because obviously, Iranians are turning to Bitcoin amid of war. So Iranians are buying Bitcoin and withdrawing it into self-custody, using it as a flight to safety amid the ongoing conflict. So outflows from major Iranian platforms spike over 700% following military strikes. So is this the reason where everyone wants to find safety right now? That's the result of Bitcoin price spiking, right? So let me know in the comment section, what do you guys think, right? It's always good to hear feedback from viewers. And other interesting news to bring you guys. And obviously, President Trump is stepping in to urge the sign off of the Genius Bill. So apart from him going out bombing everyone else, I think there were also some thinking from President Trump to bomb another country. But I think he's got enough of Iran to sort out right now. He's also trying to sort things out at home in the US, specifically for the crypto bill, the Genius Act. So a post from Charles Hoskinson. Any ADA holders here? I used to hold some ADA, but I think in the last cycle, in the most recent cycle, I made some gain and finally rotate that back into Bitcoin. Gosh, that was a very, very good move. I felt, at least. But let me know in the comment section if there are any ADA holders here. So Charles Hoskinson, he tweeted this, and he's in full agreement with the presidents, because I think he was also involved in driving these initiatives too. So what does it say? The Genius Act is being threatened and undermined by the banks, and this is unacceptable. We are not going to allow it. The US needs to get market structure done ASAP. Americans should earn more money on their money. Exactly, right? The British should too. The Europeans, the Chinese, everyone should too. The banks are hitting record profits, and we are not going to allow them to undermine our powerful crypto agenda that will end up going to China. Okay, I don't think that's going to China anytime soon. But anyway, and other countries, if we don't get the Clarity Act taken care of, the Genius Act was the USA first big step to make United States the crypto capital of the world, no doubt. And getting the Clarity Act done is the next step to finish the job, and most importantly, keep this big and powerful industry in our country. The banks should not be trying to undercut the Genius Act or hold the Clarity Act hostage. They need to make a good deal with the crypto industry, because that's what's in best interest of the American people. This industry cannot be taken from the people of America when it is so close to becoming truly successful. Thank you for your attention to this matter. Yada yada yada. Donald Trump. Okay. So can this be the catalyst, right? So I reckon this can well be a good catalyst, but we won't see this until sometime mid-year, I think. And anyway, if we don't see this until mid-year, very likely this will come. If we do see this mid-year, right, this gets signed off, gets to the president's, Donald Trump signing this off, I reckon by end of year, we should see some recovery, and by next year, maybe the liquidity will come back, right? So we've still got a full 10 months. 10 months? Yeah, I think 10 months or 8 months to accumulate Bitcoin, guys. So this is like the best time to accumulate. So to finish off the day, I want to bring you guys some Hopeium, right? Let me just bring you guys some Hopeium. I know many of you guys love Hopeium, which I do too. So I'm going to bring you guys some ISM PMI analysis that indicates the next bull run about to begin, right? So a lot of people don't believe in the 4-year cycle, right? I mean, okay, this is kind of the analysis to say that there isn't exactly a 4-year cycle. A 4-year cycle exists because it kind of ties in with the business ISM cycle, the PMI, etc., right? So this analyst kind of laid down the ISM analysis with the Bitcoin price movement, which many of you guys should be aware of, right? Because I certainly hope so, because it can mean that another all-time high for Bitcoin can potentially be this year, right? So this is why I kind of need you guys to, to understand the situation, understand the different story, right? Because all I'm telling you guys on my Compound Live, it's essentially, I I kind of talks a lot about the 4-year cycle, right? But if we start to layer things into the ISM PMI data into it, it kind of tells a slightly different story. It doesn't mean the 4-year cycle is completely dead, but it's something to be aware of, that potentially this could means liquidity entering, right? So obviously last year we obviously formed an all-time high of 126,000. That was, I think, a lot of people believing in the 4-year cycle, right? However, PMI ISM was very, very low last year, right? So that's why Bitcoin never did a parabolic move, right? So this time round, if we start to lay this in, will this make a difference, right? So you guys need to be aware of, so that, you know, we live in a world of data, right? I don't just talk about Bitcoin out of nothing. I talk about it based on charts, based on available data. And these are things that many of you guys need to be aware of, okay? Aware of it, either it's a Hopeium, or aware of it to also help you to decide on what you guys want to do on your DCA, right? So I'm not immediately reacting onto this because I still have a DCA schedule I have, right? And I still have quite good exposure onto Bitcoin. So that's why I'm not FOMO in buying, right? But I do understand that a lot of people, right? Maybe you have a lot of cash on the sideline and you are simply waiting to deploy to buy in, right? So these are information that maybe matters to you all more, okay?
We have great news for crypto holders, okay? What we're looking at is Bitcoin on a weekly time frame up top and what we call the ISM PMI down below. Now, the ISM PMI has a threshold of 50, meaning whenever it's trading above 50, well, then we're in expansion. Whenever we're trading below 50, well, then we're in contraction. Now, you might be able to notice a pattern here. Every single time the ISM PMI starts expanding, well, then that correlates with a Bitcoin bull run. Again, that happened during literally every bull run, and it is exactly what has led people to believe in a 4-year cycle. Now, here is the thing. The ISM PMI is finally expanding once again. We printed 52.6, and just a few days ago, we got a new ISM PMI report that came in at 52.4, so slightly lower, but this was still higher than expectations, and that's what matters. We're still in expansion. Historically, what comes next is again a Bitcoin bull run because the business cycle has started and the ISM PMI is finally expanding. We have great news for crypto holders.
So here you go, right? Hopium of the day. Expansion on PMI, ISM. Hopefully it crosses well over 50, bring us back another bull run. That would be fantastic, right? But use this information accordingly to help you to decide on your DCA, on how you guys want to deploy, right? Because I'm seeing some viewers that are really, really FOMOing in, because they kind of felt, hey, I may have missed the 60,000 because, you know, maybe they are truly believing that PMI, ISM is like a very, very strong indicator. But anyway, not financial advice, do your own research, and I will let you guys decide on what you guys want to do. So that's it for today. Thank you for watching. If you like the video, like the content, remember to hit the like, hit subscribe. I'll be dropping alpha here and there, even on my YouTube posts, right? So check that out too. So I will see you guys in the next video. Thank you. Bye-bye.